His real name is Usher Raymond IV. The world just calls him Usher. Most people carry the early 2000s version in their heads, the Confessions era, the sold-out arenas, the screaming crowds. That version is real, but it is incomplete. What happened after the peak, the decisions made quietly, the structures built patiently, that is the story most people never heard. In 2026, Usher stands at the center of one of the most impressively diversified celebrity portfolios in American entertainment history. Grammy-winning artist, father of four, husband, businessman with equity in technology, hospitality, and entertainment, real estate across 2 states. Quietly, without most people noticing, he built something built to last. This is what quiet wealth looks like. The boy born in Dallas who became Atlanta's son, Usher Raymond. The fourth was born on October 14, 1978, in Dallas, Texas. But Dallas was just a coordinate. The city that shaped him, the city that claimed him, and that he claimed back, was Atlanta, Georgia. His mother, Jonetta Patton, moved the family to Chattanooga, Tennessee after his parents divorced. It was there, in a church choir, that the voice first revealed itself. Not in a recording studio, not on a stage with lights and management and record executives watching. In a church, with a congregation, with something at stake beyond applause. Jonetta recognized what she was hearing. She relocated the family to Atlanta when Usher was a young teenager, a move that would change the entire trajectory of not just one life, but the cultural history of American R&B music. Atlanta in the early 90s was becoming a creative epicenter. LaFace Records was there. L.A. Reid was there. Jermaine Dupri was building something that would eventually reshape the sound of popular music for a decade. And a teenage boy with a voice that made rooms go quiet was about to walk directly into the middle of all of it. At 13 years old, Usher auditioned for L.A. Reid. Reid signed him immediately. His self-titled debut album arrived in 1994. He was 15 years old. The industry clock had started. By 1997, My Way had changed everything. The album sold over 8 million copies worldwide. Songs like You Make Me Wanna and Nice and Slow were not just hits, they were cultural moments. The kind of records people remember exactly where they were when they first heard them. And then came Confessions. Confessions, the catalog, and the career that keeps paying, released in 2004. Confessions is not just Usher's best album. It is one of the best-selling albums of the entire 2000s decade, full stop. The numbers are almost difficult to absorb. Over 20 million copies sold worldwide. 4 #1 singles. Yeah! Featuring Lil Jon and Ludacris became one of the longest-running #1 singles in Billboard Hot 100 history at the time. Burn. Confessions Part 2, My Boo, each one a different emotional frequency, each one inescapable, each one still streaming millions of times every month on platforms that did not even exist when the album was recorded. That catalog is not just a legacy. It is a living, breathing, compounding financial asset. In the streaming economy, catalog value is measured differently than it once was. A song from 2004 that still generates 10 million streams per month is worth significantly more today than it was at the moment of release. When you multiply that logic across an entire discography, Confessions, My Way, 8,701, Raymond v. Raymond, Looking for Myself, Hard to Love, you begin to understand why music royalties alone position Usher in a financial category that most entertainers never reach. He did not stop making music after the peak years. That is the part people miss. He released Raymond v. Raymond in 2010. He delivered Climax in 2012. He toured consistently. He adapted to streaming. He featured on records with younger artists, introducing his catalog to new audiences who then discovered the back catalog on their own. In 2024, Usher headlined the Super Bowl LVIII halftime show in Las Vegas, the most watched halftime performance in the history of that broadcast at the time it aired. Over 129 million people watched. His Spotify streams increased by 250% in the days immediately following. His catalog shot back to the top of every chart that measures it. That is not nostalgia, that is relevance. maintained deliberately, sustained by quality. The woman beside the empire, Jennifer Goicoechea. To understand the life Usher has built in 2026, you have to understand the partnership at the center of it. Jennifer Goicoechea, known to many simply as Jen, is not a background figure in this story. She is a full presence, a professional in her own right, with a career in the music industry that predates her relationship with Usher entirely. She built her name as a senior vice president at Epic Records, a title earned inside one of the most competitive and unforgiving environments in American entertainment. Jen brought to this relationship something that mattered as much as chemistry. She understood the industry from the inside. She had built her own professional credibility in an environment where that credibility is earned slowly and protected fiercely. She and Usher began dating in 2019. Their relationship moved at the pace of two people who had already figured out who they were individually, which is to say, it moved with intention, not desperation. Their daughter, Sovereign Beau Raymond, arrived in September 2020. Their son, Sire Castrello Raymond, was born in November 2021. And on February the 5th, 2022 Super Bowl Sunday, which for Usher carries its own particular energy, the couple married in a ceremony that was intimate by design, private, meaningful, theirs. Jen Goicoechea Raymond is not a Hollywood accessory. She is a strategist and a mother, and a creative force who adds dimension to the Raymond family that goes far beyond headline material. 4 children, one vision. Usher Raymond is the father of 4 children, and the way he parents those children reflects the same philosophy that runs through everything else in his life: structured, intentional, and rooted in something real. His 2 oldest sons came from his previous marriage to stylist Tamika Foster. Usher Raymond V, known as Cinco, was born in November 2007. His younger brother, Naveed Ely Raymond, was born in December 2008. Both boys are now young men. Both have grown up watching their father navigate the intersection of celebrity, business, and family with consistency. Tragically, in 2012, Kyle Glover, the son of Tamika Foster from a previous relationship, died after a jet ski accident on a Georgia lake. Usher and Tamika had been present for that accident. That loss left a mark that no public statement could fully contain. It deepened something in Usher, made the concept of protection of family, of the people inside your circle, not abstract but urgent. With Jen, he welcomed Sovereign and Sire in the years that followed. And now, with 4 children spanning different ages and different chapters of his life, Usher has spoken publicly about what fatherhood means to him, not as a PR moment but as a genuine anchor. He has said, in interviews across multiple platforms, that his children gave him a reason to build something that lasts beyond his own career. That is not a talking point. That is a design principle, and it shows up in every business decision, every real estate acquisition, every equity stake he has taken on in the last decade. The Atlanta Life Home, Neighborhood, and Roots Atlanta is not just where Usher built his career. It is where he chose to stay. In an entertainment culture that pulls its biggest names toward Los Angeles or New York or Miami, Usher's continued commitment to Atlanta is a statement. It is a declaration that the city, its culture, its creative community, its specific gravitational pull is not just a backdrop but a foundation. His primary Atlanta residence is an estate-level home that reflects the aesthetic sensibility of a man who has always cared about design without being performative about it. The property sits in one of Atlanta's most established and discreetly prestigious neighborhoods, the kind where mature landscaping and architectural restraint signal wealth more quietly than gates and fountains ever could. The interior reflects both Jen's creative sensibility and Usher's taste for clean, high-quality finishes. Wide-format flooring, custom built-ins, a kitchen designed for a family that actually uses it, not one staged for photography, a home theater, a studio space integrated into the property in a way that means the line between his professional creative work and his personal life is intentionally thin. The grounds include a pool, a basketball court, and enough space for 4 children to exist with volume without the house feeling under siege. That is not a small design challenge. It is one that was clearly thought through. Usher also maintains a presence in Los Angeles, consistent with the demands of a career that requires proximity to television and film production at certain times of the year. but Atlanta pulls him back. It always has. The cars, what a man drives. When he can drive anything for a man of Usher Raymond's financial standing, the garage is not a collection. It is a reflection. Over the years, Usher has been linked to a range of vehicles that tell a coherent story about his taste, high performance, European craftsmanship, understated luxury with occasional explosions of pure automotive drama. The Bugatti Veyron, a machine so mechanically extreme that it requires a special protocol just to change the tires. The Veyron was not a purchase made for attention. It was made for the experience of driving something at the absolute outer boundary of what engineering can produce. At a price point exceeding $1,500,000, it is also a store of value in a way that most vehicles are not. He has been linked to Lamborghini models that represent a different kind of performance philosophy. Italian, aggressive, unapologetically theatrical in their design language. The Porsche represents his quieter driving moments. German, precision, daily driver capability at a level most people will never experience, but wrapped in proportions that do not announce themselves the moment they enter a parking lot. He has also been associated with a Rolls-Royce if the Bugatti is the statement car and the Porsche is the daily driver. The Rolls is the declaration of arrival, not at a destination but at a state of being. The kind of car that communicates, without a word, that a certain chapter of financial concern is simply over. A large SUV rounds out what is known of his fleet, practical enough for a father of four, capable enough for the Georgia landscape, and aspirational enough to belong in the same driveway as everything else. The business architecture beyond the music here is where the real story of Usher's 2026 wealth becomes clear. Because music, as extraordinary as his catalog is, represents only one dimension of an economic profile that has been expanding quietly for over 15 years. Music royalties and publishing, the backbone of everything. A catalog that includes Confessions, one of the best-selling albums of the 2000s, generates passive income at a scale most people cannot intuitively grasp. Streaming alone, across Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, YouTube, and Tidal, delivers tens of millions of streams per month across his full discography. In combination with publishing royalties, synchronization licensing for film and television, and performance royalties, the music catalog is estimated to generate between $5 million and $10 million annually. It has never stopped. Entertainment ventures and production. Usher's production activity has expanded significantly in the years surrounding his Super Bowl appearance. He has been involved in theatrical productions, television development, and content deals that position him not just as a performer, but as a creator and executive producer with equity in what he builds. That shift from talent to owner is the single most important financial evolution a celebrity can make, and Usher made it deliberately. Technology and early-stage investment. In 2016, Usher was among the investors in Tidal. Jay-Z's artist-owned streaming platform before Square, now Block, acquired a significant stake in the company in 2021. His interest in technology investment did not end there. He has been involved in early-stage conversations around companies in the wellness, entertainment technology, and content distribution spaces. These are not widely publicized moves, which is exactly the point. Endorsements and brand partnerships. Over a two-decade career, Usher has maintained brand relationships with some of the world's most recognizable companies, from Pepsi to Beats by Dre, to high-end fashion collaborations that match his aesthetic without diluting it. These deals, at his level of cultural stature, are structured to include equity components, not just flat fees. That means each partnership is not just income, it is ownership. The net worth conversation, what 2026 actually looks like. Published net worth figures for Usher Raymond in 2026 cluster around $180 million to $200 million. Celebrity net worth placed the figure at $180 million as of early 2024, and the trajectory since that estimate, buoyed by the Super Bowl performance, streaming catalog acceleration, renewed brand deals, and expanded production activity, suggests the real number in 2026 sits at or above that ceiling. But net worth figures for people like Usher are notoriously conservative when measured by public estimates. They do not fully capture the present value of a music catalog that keeps growing. They do not fully account for private equity stakes in companies that have not yet had liquidity events. They do not capture real estate appreciation in markets like Atlanta and Los Angeles that have continued to strengthen. The full picture catalog value, real estate equity, technology investments, brand equity in ventures connected to his name points toward a total economic profile that is meaningfully higher than any single published figure suggests. What is not in question is this: Usher Raymond is one of the wealthiest R&B artists of his generation. And crucially, unlike some artists of comparable fame who experience dramatic financial reversals, his wealth is diversified, defensible, and structured for growth. The philanthropy building what others cannot see. Usher's commitment to giving back is not a chapter added to his story for optics. It is a chapter that has been running in parallel with everything else since he was a teenager. In 1999, he established the Usher's New Look Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to connect young people from underserved communities to opportunities in education, mentorship, and career development. The foundation operates on the principle that exposure changes outcomes, that a young person who can see a path will walk it, and a young person who cannot see one will remain stationary not because of lack of ambition, but lack of visibility. Over more than 2 decades of operation, Usher's New Look has served tens of thousands of young people across multiple cities. It runs summits, mentorship programs, and leadership academies. It has produced graduates who have gone on to careers in technology, media, business, and the arts, young people who carry forward the investment made in them by this foundation. The personal significance of this work is rooted in Usher's own experience. He has spoken extensively about how pivotal it was for someone to believe in him at a young age, how L.A. Reid's decision to sign a teenager changed the arc of his life permanently. The foundation is, in a real sense, his attempt to be for others what someone once was for him. That is not a press strategy. That is character made institutional. The legacy architecture what Usher is actually building. In 2026, Usher Raymond IV is 47 years old. His oldest son is a young adult. His youngest children are still forming their first memories of the world. He stands at the precise intersection of creative legacy and financial maturity, old enough to have made the consequential decisions, young enough to watch them compound over the next 30 years. The music will always be there. Confessions is not going anywhere. Yeah, will outlive every trend that tried to replace it. The Super Bowl performance ensured that an entirely new generation has now heard those songs at the highest possible volume, in the most culturally resonant context available in American entertainment. But the legacy Usher is actually building, the one that will matter most to his 4 children and to their children after them, is not measured in streams or chart positions. It is measured in equity, in ownership, in the real estate portfolio that generates passive income while he sleeps, in the catalog that pays regardless of what the charts are doing, in the technology investments that are quietly appreciating, in the foundation that has already changed tens of thousands of young lives and has been doing so since before the turn of the century. He built it while performing. He built it while grieving. He built it while raising 4 children and managing a public life that would have consumed a less disciplined person entirely. He built it quietly. He built it consistently. He built it well. When you trace the full arc, Chattanooga Church Choir to Dallas Hospital, to Atlanta, to LaFace Records, to Super Bowl halftime, to a $200 million portfolio in 2026, what you find is not luck. What you find is a system built by a man who understood earlier than most that the performance is the product, but the catalog is the asset. That the name on the marquee is temporary, but the name on the deed is permanent. That fame is a tool, and wealth is the structure that outlasts it. Jennifer Goicoechea Raymond is beside him. 4 children are watching. A foundation is running. A catalog is streaming. Real estate is appreciating. And somewhere in Atlanta, in a house that reflects exactly who he is and exactly what he has built, Usher Terry Raymond IV is living a life that most people do not fully understand and that he has never felt the need to fully explain. This is what quiet wealth looks like. This is what building for the next generation actually means. This is the lifestyle of Usher, and it is only getting started.